So, what happens when one government agency says a felony's been committed, but another one just won't investigate? Today, we're going to dive into a pretty perplexing case, built entirely from official documents, that shows what happens when a State Department's finding of a serious crime slams right into a brick wall at the local level. Right at the heart of this whole thing is this massive contradiction. You've got the Washington State Department of Licensing, on one hand, officially stating that a vehicle title transfer was straight up fraudulent. But then, on the other hand, the Mercer Island Police Department dismisses the whole thing as a civil matter. So how on earth does a state-certified felony get downgraded to a simple dispute? Well, the answer, surprisingly, doesn't start with a car. It starts with a conflict between three roommates. All right, let's back up. To really get what's going on here, we have to start at the very beginning, with the people involved. The documents show that way before any fight over property, there was a total breakdown in a living situation that got so bad it ended in a formal eviction. Okay, so according to the police report, here's how it went down. On August 19th, 2025, officers from the Mercer Island PD showed up at a house to serve a temporary protection order. This order meant that two people, Reanna Fox and Jason Gummersall, had to leave the home they were sharing with a third person, Dustin Jolly. A couple of hours later, after packing their things, they were gone. And the police report, it's really clear about who's who here. Dustin Jolly is the petitioner. He's the one who asked for the order. Reanna Fox and Jason Gummersall are the respondents, the ones who are ordered to leave. Now, this is where things get really interesting. The official record adds a pretty critical layer of context here. A background report on one of the respondents, Reanna Fox, shows a significant criminal history with multiple felony convictions. And you really want to pay attention to a couple of those, forgery and identity theft, because those exact crimes are about to become the absolute focus of this entire dispute. And that history of forgery, well, it brings us right to the central piece of this bureaucratic puzzle, a vehicle that was reported stolen, and the official forensic findings from the state of Washington. So, the property at the center of all this is a 2022 Hyundai Santa Cruz. The documents show it was originally owned by Dustin Jolly. Yup, the same guy who filed that protection order against his roommates. And this is where the state's position becomes absolutely crystal clear. After a formal investigation, the Department of Licensing left no room for doubt. They determined the signature on the title was a forgery, period. That made the transfer fraudulent, and because of that, the entire transaction was legally void under Washington law. So, according to the state, that vehicle never legally changed hands. You can see how this official finding from the state directly backs up the formal complaint filed by Dustin Jolly. He says it plainly. The signature was forged, and he had the state's forensic analysis to prove it. So, with an official state finding of forgery in hand, you'd think this would be case closed, right? You'd expect some swift action. But this is where the whole thing just hits a bureaucratic wall, and the story takes a really frustrating turn. And here it is, the roadblock, in black and white, in an email from the Mercer Island Police Records Supervisor. After getting all the complaints and the evidence, the department's official position was that these were, quote, civil matters. This slide just lays out the two completely different worlds we're talking about. On one side, the police department is calling it a civil dispute. On the other, you have Jolly's emails citing specific Washington state laws, pointing out that fraudulent title transfer isn't just a disagreement, it's a Class B felony, right alongside other criminal statutes for forgery and identity theft. Then you get to the communication part, or the lack of it. In one email, the police department claims its detectives tried to contact Jolly at least 10 times about his concerns, but they never heard back. But Jolly's reply tells a totally different story. He says he never received a single call, and then asks them to please confirm the number they were even trying to use. It's just a fundamental breakdown in communication that left the whole investigation dead in the water. So, what happens to a person who's caught in this kind of bureaucratic gridlock? Well, the documents paint a pretty grim picture of the real-world consequences and the escalating fight just to get someone to listen. In his formal complaints, Jolly lays out this whole domino effect. Because the vehicle theft, which the state called a felony, wasn't prosecuted, he lost his transportation. Then he lost his housing. He also lost his personal belongings, including things that are just irreplaceable, like family heirlooms and, just devastatingly, the ashes of his late son. And that domino effect becomes painfully real when you look at the documents. This pre-lien notice shows that without his truck, without that stability, Jolly fell behind on a storage unit payment. And that put his last few possessions at risk of being auctioned off. And if that wasn't enough, it's like even technology was working against him. When he tried to email his formal misconduct complaints, the city's own mail server just rejected them. He got an access denied error. He was literally being blocked by the very system he was trying to hold accountable. Faced with all these roadblocks, the documents show he had no choice but to escalate. Jolly filed formal complaints not just with the local police, but he went up the chain, notifying the Washington State Attorney General, the U.S. Department of Justice, and the King County Prosecuting Attorney, demanding that the evidence be preserved. In all of this, just leaves us with a huge, fundamental question that goes way beyond this one specific case. When a state agency gives you clear, forensic proof that a felony happened, but your local law enforcement just decides it's a civil matter, what path is left for a citizen who's just trying to find justice?